The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
Welcome back to Power Hour. It is such a pleasure to have you join us today. You could be anywhere, but you want to know the truth. You want to know what's going on in the world, in the United States. Well, we have Mike Zullo joining us today, and I'm really pleased to have him rejoin us at the Power Hour. Retired detective, volunteer for the Maricopa County Sheriff Posse. He is the lead detective on that case. And we'll talk about Sheriff Arpaio and his creation of this case. But I had the pleasure of seeing him at the recent CSPOA meeting, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Police Officers Association meeting with Sheriff Mack. I say I had the pleasure of seeing him. I didn't get to talk to him. He was always surrounded by so many people, which tells you of the popularity of the issue that he is pursuing and the investigation that he is doing. So I thank you very much for joining us, Mike Zullo, on the Power Hour today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you again.
You had so many people, so many sheriffs, so many police officers surrounding you. You probably, it was encouraging you to find out how much support there is for this investigation.
It was really encouraging. There were a lot of police officers there that didn't really follow this issue, actually wrote it off, as Sheriff Arpaio did in the very beginning, thinking that there really wasn't going to be anything to this. And after they saw a presentation for about an hour and a half of evidence that we have, they actually came up to me saying, you know, I didn't believe it, but I do now, and I'm going to follow it, and I'm going to support it. So that was encouraging, because when you can, deliver this kind of information to your peers and have it peer-reviewed and come out with that kind of positive reinforcement, I know we have it. We know it's fake, and soon the world will know it's fake.
And, of course, what we're talking about, I want you to talk about what this cold case posse investigation is all about, surrounding, of course, the birth certificate of Obama, which involves probably a lot more than that, but that was your focus, I know, at the meeting. And it was great. It's great knowing that many sheriffs and police officers got involved and are now supporting you. I know there was a closed-door meeting that I accidentally went in or tried to get into, but there was a guy with a gun at the door that was not all that, you couldn't get in the meeting unless you were a person that was called law enforcement. I know you can't tell us about that meeting, but I just want the people to know that you did have a meeting that was closed door with law enforcement only.
We did. I gave two presentations. I gave one very early on in the morning, which I believe is on YouTube as we speak, but then we did give a closed door to law enforcement, attorneys, or elected officials, governmental officials. And like you said, that was something that you just couldn't get into. We didn't allow the media to partake of that because we were showing evidence that we have never released publicly. And we did this because we wanted to gauge the strength and weight of what we were presenting to our own peers. Much like in medicine, they do what's called peer review. You take the data and you let your peers review it. Well, that's what we wanted to do. That meeting was scheduled to go for an hour, 1 hour. It ended up going for about 4.5 hours.
Wow.
People just stayed there for 4.5 hours. And I don't have to tell you, you're in this, talk business. To keep people engaged like that, you have to have some compelling stuff.
Absolutely. And that's why accidentally I was looking for you and wanted to talk to you before the meeting was over, and I said, where was he? And they said he's in that room down there, so I thought the meeting was over, but boy, was I surprised to see a man with a gun at the door saying, you can't go in there. And, who would I tell after all, Mike? My goodness, you could share that information with me. Anyway,
okay.
From this meeting, you've gotten support, I know, from sheriffs around the country. You made an offer. I know this much. You did make an offer that you would come and talk to each sheriff or police officer or police chief personally and engage them to be involved in this. Have you had any people take you up on that?
No, I haven't. I don't think I'm going to have to. I said it that way just to put it out there on the line that if you doubted anything that you saw here, you could call me up and I would come out and see you personally. But what we were trying to do is garner law enforcement support because Sheriff Arpaio wants to take this matter to Congress. He wants Congress to look at this. And we think Congress needs to look at this. Not that this rises to the level of any of the other atrocities that we are now putting before Congress. But we need Congress to take a look at this. Congress is the people that can get to the bottom line of this fraudulent document quicker than any other process.
Well, I'd like to believe that the congressional system works, that they are there for us, and that 2 senators from every state care about the people, but unfortunately it's getting a little bit, I'm getting a little bit jaundiced on that issue, but that is the place that it needs to go. Do you know of any congressional support at this point?
I do. We have Congressman Steve Stockman from Texas who has expressed interest, and I am trying to schedule a meeting with him before they go on summer recess, which I believe is sometime in August, and I think that meeting will happen. He wants to be fully debriefed on everything that we have to date. I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm actually in Washington as we speak. We have other contacts now, other VIPs that want to hear some information, and I'm here to deliver that.
Interesting. Well, that is breaking news that you are in Washington right now. Steve Stockman, oh my gosh. I mean, I consider that such an honor to actually have the opportunity to talk to that man. The guy is the real deal. If there is anybody that's the real deal in Washington, I believe he is.
I agree with you, and I think Steve is going to really, really try to do something with this. I don't want to speak prematurely, but out of the host of politicians that I have encountered, I agree with you. He is the real deal. He's got the fortitude to do it, and he's got the insight. He just doesn't play around. It's either black or white. What is it? What's it going to be? And let's get to the bottom of it. That's the way that guy runs.
Yes, yes. All right, let's go back to the issue. The issue at hand is the birth certificate. Now, everything seems to be focused on that. And I would have to ask you, why is it the birth certificate when we know his Social Security number is bad, or we've been told it's bad, when his draft information, his history, his CV, all of those things are a problem, but you're focusing just on the birth certificate. And why is that?
Well, the birth certificate was really the issue that was presented to us. And what people have to understand is we can't just go around as a law enforcement organization and investigate anything that we want. We have to have a jurisdictional reason to investigate something. In other words, some crime or offense has to have happened in our county, in Arizona, Maricopa County. And the birth certificate was offered by the president as proof positive of the birth event that he claims took place in Hawaii, and it was presented over the airwaves in a press conference and released on the Internet. And that was right before the 2012 election cycle. We had a group of citizens, a Tea Party, surprise Tea Party, came to the sheriff with a petition of 250 signers saying that we think there's something wrong with this and our voting rights are going to be infringed. Sheriff Arpaio in the beginning didn't think there was much to this, and myself in the beginning. I didn't really know anything about this until the sheriff called me and asked me if we would take a look at this. And I wholeheartedly expected to clear this document in about 48 hours. I didn't think there was going to be anything here. And as fate would have it, we're now 21 months into a very long, tedious investigational process, gathering the evidence that we believe we need to put forth to prove the document to be a forgery. And on top of that, we were successful in getting a court-certified document examiner, somebody who testifies as an expert in court, to review the document, review our methodology, and come to his own independent conclusion that the document is a 100% forgery. So now I have a court-certified forensic document examiner concurring with us that the document has been manipulated, it's been fabricated, and it is in fact a forgery.
You know, the question that a lot of us have, and anybody would come to this understanding, or this, I don't know, would come to this point that, wait a minute, if it's that obvious that it is a fraud, how are they able to keep it from the people? How are they able to continue this hoax on the American public when we don't really know who Obama is? We don't really know if he, I don't know that he was a constitutional lawyer. I don't know any of those things because it does not appear that there's background to support him. How can they keep this hoax going, and who keeps the hoax going? Well,
they keep the hoax going in a number of ways. There seems to be some kind of agreement between Republicans and Democrats not to look into this issue. We know that the media has gone silent on this issue. They went silent on it 24 hours after the birth certificate was released to the public. Then we know that the opposition, the loyal opposition through the media, should be the people vetting the President of the United States.
Yes.
And they haven't done their job. So we believe now it is in the position for Congress, as the Constitution calls for, it's in the position of Congress to do the vetting now of this individual. Even though it's almost 2 terms later, 2.5 terms later, we don't believe that the American people should be excluded from the truth. They have a right to know who this man is. And just like you said, Joyce, just earlier, he was never a constitutional professor. I mean, they just exaggerated every tale about this individual. We go back and try to look into his background, we can't get too far. The trail goes cold. There's gaps in the background. We can't get enough information on him to satisfy one of the most basic background investigations. I mean, and this is the sitting president of the United States, and the voting public has a right to know who the guy is. We don't have any evidence that suggests that he was in Hawaii before the age of 5 years old. We don't have any evidence that says he was born in Hawaii. And I'll make it even worse. If we are right, which I do believe we are, but you always preface it because someone else is going to have to adjudicate this. If we are correct in that document, that birth certificate PDF file is fraudulent, he has offered no proof to his own birth narrative. And that means there is no evidence that the people he purports to even be his parents are in fact his parents. We don't have any real evidence of that either.
We don't have evidence of anything. The guy could be an alien for all we know. We'll be back after this. No, I'm just kidding. We'll be back after this 4-minute break. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Power Hour. Thank you for joining us. It's all about the truth, and we search for it at the Power Hour. We may not like it, but we search for it. And I spent 13 years as a Ketom whistleblower, and I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, when you paid the price like that, nobody can really get to you. I mean, 13 years of abuse that I took because I was right, if you will. And you have to pursue when you're right. You have to do that. You have to. It's not a choice, I think, for Mike Zullo and for Sheriff Arpaio. I don't think it's a choice any longer. Once you know something is really, really wrong, you want to do that for the sake of the issue and for the people that it affects. You know, we're talking to Mike Zullo, who is the head of the cold case posse for Sheriff Arpaio's office and the investigation into the birth certificate. There's so much more than just the birth certificate. Now, we all know, we take your position. We know it's a fraud. You know, and but you know, the question is there's more than one document examiner in this country. There's lots of them, and they can all see the very same thing that you're seeing. And so it's a matter of making it visible enough to where people will come forward and do the Me Too thing. Just like now, all the pilots have come forward regarding 9/11 and saying, Me Too, there's no way it could have happened the way they said it happened. That's another whole story. But the background of Obama is so created and orchestrated. The very fact that he and his wife arbitrarily just gave back their law bar card just makes no sense to me whatsoever. Have you dealt with that issue?
You know, we did, and we ran into roadblocks. You cannot get the investigational files from the Illinois State Bar trying to look into that matter, but nobody does that. Nobody would go through that whole educational process and then surrender their bar license for no apparent reason. And I would suspect that Obama, in his case, he surrendered that because there was going to be some misrepresentations made on his application. Because we know, for one, that it does ask you a question if you had ever used another name or an alias. Now, this is the only sitting American president that's got 4 aliases. I mean, this guy's got 4 AKAs that he can go by. So we know that that question would be something we'd like to look into. And then by his own admission, he admitted to using illicit narcotics in his college days. And he admitted to using marijuana, I believe, in his high school days. And there's a question about that on a bar application, is if you ever indulge in the use of illicit narcotics. be kind of curious to see what that answer is. Now, somebody did put pressure on him, or pressure on the bar, to investigate his application, and it was right around that time that I believe he did surrender his license. So you know that application is suspect.
Mm-hmm. Surrender his license, ladies and gentlemen. It just makes no sense whatsoever. That'd be like me after I went to nursing school for 5 years, and then 6 years after I became a nurse, I'd say, oh, never mind, I really don't need that. What was I thinking to go through all that schooling? I mean, it just makes no sense. So, but these no-sense things are not making an impact. Where are the attorneys in this country? I think they don't know. I don't think they realize that he surrendered his law license, and I think that's a huge issue that needs to be brought before the people.
Well, I think it's a huge issue, and I think to answer the question, a lot of people, even though they may be suspicious, out of fear of being ostracized and called a birther or whatever, the title is these days, they don't want the headache. And, you see the harassment that was done by federal organizations, federal agencies against people that spoke out against this administration, and you can kind of understand, it's intimidation. And for Sheriff Arpaio's position, he's a cop. He's been battling these guys for the last 5-6 years that I can remember, and they've come after him pretty hard. And here's the guy's 52-year law enforcement officer, 30 years of it. He was the head of the DEA in Texas. I don't understand what they think they're going to accomplish by threatening Joe Arpaio or investigating Joe Arpaio. Sheriff Arpaio is not going to put 52 years of reputation on the line on this issue if he didn't believe wholeheartedly in what we were doing and the evidence that we have.
Without a doubt. And he has been attacked severely. I cannot imagine. At his age, he is one of the sharpest, most together people, most active people. And you say 52 years in law enforcement. Wow, he is not going to back down, I don't believe, on this or any other issue that he believes in. When we come back from this break, let's see, it's 29 after the hour. I'm going to ask, what is the second thing next to the birth certificate issue that concerns you the most about Obama? We'll be back with Mike Zullo after this break. Stay tuned. We're talking to Mike Zullo today. He heads up the cold case posse for Sheriff Arpaio on the fraud of the birth certificate. If I were to ask you what would be the second thing next to the birth certificate that causes you the most concern about Obama's history, and I'm sure you've looked at the whole picture, not just one thing, but what would that second thing be, Mike?
Well, the second thing for me would be his Selective Service registration card. In our very first press conference that Sheriff Arpaio put on back in 2012, we showed the Selective Service card with the post office canceling stamp, which should have a month, day, and a 4-digit year stamp. And Obama's, compared to numerous other ones that we got through a FOIA request from Selective Service, his canceling stamp is the only one that represents a year of 1980, except absent is the 1 and 9, and all you have there is the 80. And no other stamp is like that, and on any other card that we had the privilege to examine, even ones that came from the same post office at the same time within a month or so. And it was later determined by us that that was, in fact, a 2008 date stamp that was severed in between the 2 zeros and then inverted to make it look like an 80 and placed onto a card and stamped, fictitiously stamped is our belief. And we demonstrated that in a video on how that was accomplished. And that has ramifications to it. It is by law. If you did not register for Selective Service, I believe you're looking at 5-year imprisonment and $250,000 fine. But on top of that, you cannot serve in public office. You cannot take the position that he has. You cannot seek that office. So that's really a problem for them. And that's going to have to get investigated further. We do have a little bit of a jurisdictional issue on that as well, because it was never offered to us. It was information received during the course of an investigation. And I think once we get past the birth certificate, we'll delve deeper into that.
All right, and I want to open up the phone lines because I want to let other people have a chance to talk to you. 855-995-6923. 855-995-6923 if you have a question or comment for our guest today, Mike Zullo. You know, there are a lot of people out there that are addressing other issues. 9/11. What happened at Sandy Hook? There's some very good investigations that are taking place on these other issues. And the IRS targeting has sort of put some fear into some people. But I think we're going to have to overcome that by the idea that there are going to be enough of us that are going to stand and really use you and Sheriff Arpaio as an inspiration to do this. Because there are many things that need to be opened up in this country, and they need to be opened wide so that there is the real transparency that they said, allegedly, that would happen. What are your thoughts on the people that are trying to tell the truth and really are investigating other issues?
I think it's a difficult road. I can tell you from my own experience, it's a difficult road. We are sitting on a felony. We know we have a felony here. We know we have an individual whose background cannot be confirmed. We know we have an individual who has not been vetted by the federal government or any other agency to hold the position he's in, and trying to get people to listen to you is almost like screaming into a pillow. And when you don't have the media behind you, the problem is your message doesn't get past the borders of your own town or state. And we've experienced this with our 2 press conferences. We had a complete media background. Now, I live in Arizona, and I have relatives on the East Coast that have no idea of what I've been doing for the past 21 months, because we haven't told them I've been using it as a test. If they tell me, I know the message is getting out there. And to date, I've heard absolutely nothing. So that's the biggest problem. And I believe these people are really doing a service. I think you can see the cover-up and the magnitude of cover-up and lies that just come out of this administration. And it's not only this administration, but this one has been the most blatant. And you can see in the Benghazi hearings the amount of cover-up that is going on. The Boston Marathon bombing, I mean, I haven't looked into that personally, but I have some problems. I especially have some problems with, the amount of police officers opened up on that guy, sitting behind the engine block in a boat. I mean, that was like a barrage of fire. That was a death mission.
Well, and his brother also.
I personally have problems with that. I do. I understand. Yeah, I do. I know. I can't really speak intelligently to it because I haven't researched it. I don't have any time. But I do have. I have a lot of questions. And what my concern is at this point is they are starting to use the police officer as an extension of carrying out their missions. And that's problematic. That's scary.
Absolutely. This is not about me, but I whistleblew on the fact that the U.S. government sold biologicals to Iraq just prior to the Gulf War. And I screamed and screamed and screamed the same thing, and I thought, wow, everyone will want to know this, that we were set up for that war. And it has taken me years to be able to get people to understand that. And even people today don't know that we created that war and created the situation. And I can really sympathize with you and hope that you will use this venue anytime you need it, because believe me, we are here for you, and we want to keep this story in front of the people. John, who is our first caller in Pennsylvania? Peter in Pennsylvania. All right, we're going to take some calls now for Mike Zullo. Peter, you're on with Mike Zullo. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Joyce Riley. Mike Zullo, I was wondering, my thought is that, A, if this guy is the key, the undoing of this fraudulent presidency is the singular key that unlocks the rest of the problems, stopping the bail-in and financial crash and the connectivity to the one world UN system, so on like that. But this is the skeleton key that can protect the United States from financial catastrophe, being on the hook for all the financial derivatives, so on like this. And I want to know if that's your opinion, and what is the best way for other people to spread your information so that that they can get your contact information or what you have available as proof.
Okay.
That's all.
Mr. Zullo?
Well, I think that, this does pose a significant constitutional issue if everything we say is brought to light and it's absolutely correct. I do fear, and I'm talking to you now from my private life, I do fear that we are too far gone financially at this point not to suffer some real pain. The magnitude of the pain, though, can be lessened by the direction that we take. I am very concerned that it is just a systematic plan to overload our economic system, to put us all in a state of dependency and ultimately, change the foundations of our very country.
Absolutely.
Can this undo it? There's going to be a consequence either way we do this. And I personally believe that if I'm going to pay a price, I want to pay it for standing on the side of truth. Because if you buy this lie, the ones that are going to come after this will make this look like a walk in the park.
Wow.
And you can't stand for the lies.
That is scary. The website, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that you can go to find out what you can do and to donate to this operation, because they are totally on their own for the cost on this, is mcs0ccp.org. Go to the website, thepowerhour.com. It's there under today's guest. Click on it and go to the website to support what they're doing. Thank you very much, Peter in Pennsylvania. Let's go to Chris in Florida. Chris, you're on the air with Mike Zullo. Go ahead, please.
Good morning. At ObamaCrimes.com, there's an excellent article that Sheriff Mack had acknowledged as being very important, called "What About Obama's Indonesian Citizenship" by attorney Philip Berg. And essentially, even if we were to assume that Obama was born in Hawaii, of course, I don't believe he was. I don't believe that the birth certificates are legitimate. But if we assume he was, we have no evidence that he petitioned for naturalization by the age of 25, and his mother had surrendered his citizenship in order to attend school in Indonesia as required by Indonesian law. Now, to even petition for naturalization in the U.S. by age 25, he would have to have signed an affidavit relinquishing Indonesian citizenship and send it to Indonesia. And the current website of the State Department says that a parent can't surrender child citizenship. That's the false comeback I've heard when I've called other false progressive talk shows. But of course, the law at the time was that in order to regain his citizenship, he would have had to. He would have had to petition for naturalization. And of course, in his own book, Dreams of My Father, he writes that he renewed his Indonesian passport when he traveled to Pakistan, which is why he had to stop in Indonesia first. So I think that issue is at least as important as the birth certificate issues.
All right. Go ahead, Mike, your response?
Yeah, let me address that really quick, because those are some really good points. There's a situation, though, and we've been looking into the passport issue, and we have a retired 30-year veteran of immigration working with us on this because we need his expertise. And, there's a passport application that Stanley Ann Dunham filled out. I believe it was around 1965. Don't quote me on that. I have so many dates running around my head. But I believe it was around 65, where she attempts to put Mr. Obama on her passport. And it's crossed out. And then there's another surname under it, and it's Soe Barker, something to that effect. That is a little problematic for us. First of all, where it is on this application is it says that you have to list your children. And for some reason, they were not accepting that. Now, we don't know if it was because they can't prove parental lineage or if he was getting his own passport at that time, and for some reason she put that either in there incorrectly or a decision was made to give him his own passport. But the problem with the citizenship is he was a minor when he was brought to Indonesia, if you buy the narrative. And as a minor, he cannot surrender his citizenship. And he has that covering, if you will, that he was not an adult going to Indonesia, surrendering his U.S. citizenship, and picking up Indonesian citizenship. So it's a little murky for us, and we're not clear as to what that answer is going to be. It is a problem. It's problematic, I believe. I understand that to go to Jakarta, to go to the schools, there's applications there which I've seen where he claims to be an Indonesian citizen. But again, he was a minor. So it's something we're working on trying to get clarification on. But I think it's going to end up being a problem like everything else in the background here. I don't think it's going to be something that's just going to be easily rectified because, quite honestly, nothing in his background is easily rectified.
All right. Thank you very much for the phone call, Chris. Good comments. Let's go to Frank in North Carolina. Frank, you're on the air with Mike Zullo.
Yes, Mike, Joyce, thank you. It's very compelling, as always. And you're right, Joyce. This one of the major problems we have in the country is too much lace. The men will
on
not.
The panties, that's right. Lace on the panties.
The men are not going to stand up. I'm going to tell you something. Now, this is my opinion, but America's gone. You cannot save America. America's already gone. The American men do not care. They're not going to put themselves out there for anything. But Obama, one of the primary reasons Obama was allowed to get into office in the first place is because there was a certain group of people that wanted him there at all costs, and they were willing to pull out all the stops to cover up for him and all the reasons why he couldn't be president. There's a documentary. It's called 911 Missing Links, and it explains who these people are, it connects the dots, and I know a lot of you, the Power Hour listeners out there have seen it, and I hope more will see it, and I hope we can discuss it in the future, but thanks, guys.
Thank you. I don't believe I've seen that. Thank you very much for the phone call. I appreciate that, Frank. Let's go to Michael. I don't think the guys are gone. I don't think so. I think they're starting to stand up and realize their future is being threatened. It's not their grandchildren like they want you to think, or your children's future. It is yours right now, and it is your freedom right now. Michael in New York, you're on the air with Mike Zullo. Go ahead, please. Oh, comment. Do you want to make any comment about lace on the panties?
Joyce, yeah, here's what I think. Here's where I think the problem is. I don't think it's that men don't want to fight. Men don't have a venue to fight because when your elected officials do not use their voice, bringing your concern forward, you have no weapon to fight with. And I think that's the problem. I think you go back to the founding of this nation, there was a small percentage of the population that stood up against the British, that took arms against the British. Now, I have to believe that we have become, even though current news doesn't represent it, a very civilized America, and we're not rushing to arms. But when you don't have a voice, what do you do? If I asked you today to organize something in your state, your county, and bring our investigation forward, what would you do? You'd contact a congressman or representative who would just listen to you, patronize you, and do nothing with it.
That's right. That's right.
That's our problem. We've
Yes,
lost
that
our
is
voice.
true.
We have no voice.
Oh, you know, when I whistleblew in a Medicare fraud case that cost millions and millions of dollars, I went to 17 organizations, all the 1-800 call us if you know fraud organizations. Not one returned my call. Not one. So I had to go get an attorney to fight the case for me, to pursue it to the Attorney General's office. I mean, 17 organizations that are set up for Medicare fraud wouldn't return my phone call. And it was huge fraud. So, you know, you're right about the voice. Oh, man, I'm so glad you said that. I am so glad you said that. Men don't feel like they have a voice. Well, they do at the Power Hour, and we are going to continue here at the Power Hour, and we will not quit at the Power Hour, and I know that Sheriff Arpaio will not stop either. So at least it's the three of us. We're all in there together. Let's go to Michael in New York. Michael, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, with our guest. Oh, hold on a second. We'll be back. Final break coming up for the program today. We're going to come back with Mike Zullo. Final questions with Michael in New York. Stay right where you are. It's all about the truth, and it's all about you. One act at a time. What will you do? Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Power Hour. Thank you. Thank you so very much. 54 minutes after the hour. These are the people that care. These are the people that want to do something. And I want to say to each and every one of you, please support what they're doing. Please support them. I don't care if you tithe to it in place of other tithing. I'm serious. We've got to save this country. And from a law enforcement standpoint, getting to the sheriffs, the police officers, just like Sheriff Mack did, and just like Sheriff Arpaio is doing, is a way to do it. What better way to go after the criminals than with the crime? And and they need your support financially. They need a lot of support for what they're doing. So please go to the website. It's at thepowerhour.com. It'll be in the email blast, and support them. Please support. Find out a way that you can support them. Talk about this. Send it out in your email blast. That's what it's all about. They are to be commended for this fight in which there is no winner other than the truth. And I cannot tell you how much respect I have for them. Let's go to Michael in New York. Michael, you're on the air. Go ahead, please, with Mike Zullo.
Good morning, Joyce. Good morning, Michael.
Morning.
You know, all great points, and Mike, you're absolutely right. We're ready to fight. There's still men in this country, but the system is definitely complicit in this felon with Obama, who's a foreign agent, and all the other points, multiple Social Security numbers. His Columbia professor, supposedly that he had, never even knew him, let alone other classmates. He sat on the Security Council seat in September of his first year in office as a national UN security member. So who is he, a UN rep or a president of the United States? Obviously a foreign agent UN rep. And like all the previous presidents, Rockefeller family installed all the way, but this one is truly the most obvious foreign agent of them all. And now it's at the point where only the military can do something, because they've got our country shut down, the whole media propaganda, the system designed to shut down anybody like you guys trying to get the truth out. It's up to the military to step in, do the right thing, come to the defense of the United States of America constitutional republic.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate that, Michael. You're right. It is up to, well, the military to stand also with us, but it's also up to us now. The action items are with us. They've done the hard work. And I must say, Mike, you guys have done the hard work. You did the tough work to get this whole thing out. Now it's our opportunity. It's necessary for us to move this message along. That's what you need the people for. And that's what we want to be, is to move this message, to be the channel for the message. And I just support you, but, you know, you've done your job. It's time for us to get this message to the people. Anything else that we can do?
Well, I think that's really, you know, what is expected from our standpoint. We're going to be able to deliver this, I do believe. I believe if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Steve Stockman from Texas.
Yes.
But once he does it, Joyce, it's up to the American people to push it forward, and that's burning down the phone lines, crashing servers with emails, demanding Congress to look into this. Look, they did steroids in baseball. Do you really care? We had televised hearings on free contraceptives for college gal. You know, I mean, we do it for all these things. This is something that demands.
The Jodi Arias trial. My gosh, what were we thinking? Every day they went forward. Not what were we thinking, what were they thinking? We salute you, sir, at the Power Hour. You're welcome back anytime, and we're going to continue the story ad nauseum if it takes that, as long as it takes. Thank you, Mike Zullo, for joining us in the Power Hour today.
Thank you. You have a great day.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.